Good morning.
Sorry.
We're all choked up this morning because we got a real big topic for you. We can't even get the words out. Do we even need a CMO anymore? What do you think, Deb? Can we get the words out?
Let's see. Yeah, we were talking about this before the show started, and we don't pre-select these topics. We just get up and say, "Hey, what's on our minds today?" And I got up with the idea that do marketing organizations really need CMOs anymore? And if you take a look at the average tenure for a CMO, what is it now, Jeff?
Well, you get outside the Fortune 5,000, it's really about 20 months.
Yeah, 20 months. I mean, that tells you that we have an issue. So is it that we don't need that CMO position? Is it that it's being done wrong? I mean, what is it? And I think there's a lot underneath that. But as we've talked about in other shows, there really is a failure of leadership when it comes to marketing. And the person that you always point the finger at, of course, is that highest level officer, which is a chief marketing officer. And I mean, Jeff, you and I have worked with companies just this year where they let their CMO go and they said, nope, we're not going to replace that. We're not going to replace that role. We're going to run it by a council, or, we're going to let our VP come in and take care of that. And so why is that? I mean, why is it that the CMO role, after all these years, is still in such turmoil? What do you think, Jeff?
Well, I think fair or unfair, the CMO has to wear a lot of hats. And,
too many hats. Let's put that on the table.
When you have, as they say, a jack of all trades, master of none, I think in this case, when you have to please so many different audiences, it's almost impossible to get it all right. Now, to be sure, look, you and I both know some incredibly talented CMOs, and many have had illustrious careers, and they have been able to establish their credibility and do a great job. But the road's not easy, although it's paved with good intentions. So I think, one, having all those responsibilities, and then as those CMOs are coming up, there were some things along the way, the ones that struggle, didn't take time to master some of the other stuff. I mean, look, just basic finance for marketing. I'm not talking about managing a budget. I'm talking more about how to understand ROI, how to really set up a revenue number, building that relationship with sales, getting out in the field. I mean, these are some critical things that a lot of CMOs skip over.
They do. They absolutely do. And I think not only do we have a lack of skills and a lack of wanting to learn those skills, I think we also have organizations that wax and wane over what is the role of the CMO. For example, we've seen organizations that hire a CMO and it's all about branding. Branding is critical to that stage of growth in the organization. And then once they get to a certain stage, now they need for marketing to become that revenue organization. And that CMO is just simply unable to make that twist, right? And so you're right. There's so many different pulls on that role. They have to wear so many different hats. And quite frankly, it's up to the CMO to step up and say, nay, this is the hat that I'm going to wear. Think about a CRO, a chief revenue officer. He or she's responsible for one thing, and that is a number, right? A number. There's no, you got to go off and do some of this. Oh, you need to go focus on this. It's the number, go get the number. Whereas a CMO, you may have part of the executive team saying, oh, no, I got to do more brand because I want to get my name in print. Or, no, we need to go off and do these things. Oh, you still got to support the sales organization, right? And so when you have that many different perceptions of what marketing is, and when you have different perceptions of what is the greatest and best use of marketing to an organization, if that CMO doesn't step up and say, hey, here's the way it's going to be, it's just not going to work.
True. And look, as we've been doing this over the last 20 years, we saw budgets and percentage of revenue systematically grow. I mean, I think if I went back 20 years ago, I mean,
we do go back 20 years. So
yeah, we do go back 20 years. So we both of us go back longer than that. But the percentage of revenue for marketing, I don't know, it was for most companies was probably in that 4 to 6% range when we first got going. And then we saw it sort of grow up into that 12, 14% for especially for tech companies. And now but now it's kind of come crashing back over the last couple of years, and it's sort of settling in that 7 to 8.5% range for many companies. And you know what? They're making it work.
Yeah.
Doing more with less. And so that almost underscores the argument. What was marketing doing with all that extra money for all these years, whether it was buying too much tech, using too many outside agencies to do some basic things, overlapping tasks and responsibilities, too many personnel in wrong areas of departments, not being able to really reorg and restructure. So, yeah, I think we're living in a new reality, and we're starting to see more fractional roles for CMOs. But we're just saying, look, we need some of what a CMO does.
Yeah.
We're not saying we don't need a CMO at all, but do we need one full time?
Right. I was working with a CMO last year, and part of what I was helping her do was reimagine her whole org structure for the company. Right. And of course, I did a lot of interviews across her organization. And they were in a fast growth mode. This is a very successful company already, but now they're bringing new products to market, and they were going into new markets, right? So there was a lot of eyes on marketing. Marketing was a key part to their growth. And she just had people on her team that just simply no longer were working out for what was needed, right? And it was an organization that didn't like to let people go. They were very loyal, to their people. And my advice to her at the end of the day was, you've got a number to hit here, right? Cushioning people and protecting their roles is not something that you can do anymore. Just like a CRO, if a CRO had a salesperson that was not performing, they'd be gone. It's pretty black and white. And it's the same thing for the CMO as a leader. They need to have the best team they can possibly put into place. And a lot of times we saw so much fluff in organizations. And that is true, Jeff. I mean, you're true. The marketing organizations that we work with now, they are leaner, they are meaner, they are more focused. They are doing less, death by 1,000 cuts. And when we see that focus across the organization, that's where we see those CMOs that are wanted in their companies, those CMOs that are valued in their organizations. So it's do they have the right skills? Are they having the right kind of leadership? Are they putting the right team in place? Are they setting company expectations for, again, and I like the term, what is the best and highest use of marketing in an organization? I mean, again, there's just so many different hats that they must wear, but at the end of the day, it's up to the CMO as a leader to set that tone.
Without a doubt. And look, we've seen so many really talented marketers mid-career and beyond. Excuse me, now I'm getting choked up. It's actually cold, but they were north of $150,000 salary over the last couple of years. They're being shown the door, in part because the world's now everyone's oyster. Even if you're a small business, you can get access to talent in the Philippines or Asia, and incredible people that can do the work as good at 1/5 the price, 1/4 of the price. And so when you're trying to get things done and you're trying to do it from a labor perspective, that makes a difference. That from an agent perspective, AI is still coming along, but just even from just raw production, there's things now that marketing is able to do with software, or even if they're just using Canva or other types of tools, they can get content produced now at a fraction of the cost.
Oh yeah.
And so it really begs the question, because marketing, we see this all the time, and marketing just likes to say yes, or they can't say no would be a better.
Oh, they can't say no. That's a better yes.
So they end up doing all this shit week in and week out. I was on site last week with a customer, and I said, best practice, take a week off a quarter with your team to do nothing but planning. And she was like, what? A week?
Like the world would stop revolving.
Like, yes. Because I asked her when we were there, I'm like, how much of what you're doing do you think is inefficient? She said more than 35%. And I'm like, okay, well, if 35% of what you're doing you feel is inefficient, then you could easily afford to lose 1 week a quarter,
Oh, yeah.
for strategic planning. But I've had that conversation multiple times with marketing executives over the last couple of years.
Remember the company we were working with earlier this year, and they were that marketing organization that couldn't say no, and the organization couldn't understand why they couldn't get everything done. And we suggested that, for a month, run your marketing organization like a services organization and track all your time and track all of your requests. And what that does at the end of the day, it gives you a capacity number. Like, my organization can do X hours of this kind of work every month. And yet the requests that we have coming in are for twice that. So something has to change, right? And so just treating it like a services organization and having people do timesheets. Of course, that freaks people out when you tell them they have to start doing timesheets, because like, what is my job at risk?
I'm a marketer. I'm not a
Yeah.
consultant or a billing.
How can you put what I do on a timesheet? But again, it's just another small thing that if you don't think about marketing as a business to the organization, you're just going to wind up never being able to say no to anything and just being miserable, because the job of marketing is not getting any easier. It just keeps getting harder. And Jeff, you've already talked about technology, and that's another one of the big things that has changed so much for the CMO. I remember back in the day when you met with a CMO and they never talked about technology. Now they can rattle off the 30 or 40 or 50 different systems they're using and how they are using them. So they also have to be this great visionary around what technology do they need and what impact can it make on the business of marketing. I mean, there's just so many hats.
There absolutely are. I want to circle back to the outsourcing, because Sam, who's on right now, made a comment about risks being associated with outsourcing. And, Sam, you're absolutely right. I mean, like, none of these we're talking about here is a perfect solution. I mean, talent is still talent. And then, of course, you really have to be a good manager no matter where you're sourcing the talent. And if you start looking at other countries, you have to be careful what you're getting, and sometimes be careful what you pay for. But, in the world of labor arbitrage, and when you are being pressured to downsize your organization and do more with less, you do have to seriously look at this, or you have to start deprioritizing and taking things off your current team's plate. Something has to give, right?
Something has to
give. Right, saying that there's definitely risks with that.
And Jeff, I would probably say that's one of besides technology, outsourcing has been one of the number one initiatives that we've seen grow tremendously in the last 3 years. And it's all because of cost. It's all because of efficiency. And it's all because marketing wants to not do those things that aren't that important when it's just more, baseline kind of work, and gives them more time to be strategic and think. But outsourcing is huge right now in the marketing world.
It is. And again, I mean, even if you use Upwork, that's a form of outsourcing, if you're looking for people to do projects. So look, you could be a 1-person marketing team. You could have 10, you could have 1,000. There are all different kinds of options as you consider what your mix is. But it still gets back to that planning and why, being versatile on a quarterly basis and really sitting down and adjusting, because every business is fluid. The year never goes as perfectly as we ever want it to. We have all of our plans. We do our budgets between August and December. We have our kickoff meetings in January, and we get going, and then shit happens. We have a bad quarter. There's a merger and acquisition, a new government regulation. We lose a key customer. Some key person leaves. I mean, things are always happening. Yeah. So and part of the marketing, which makes it challenging, is we have to course correct and we have to adjust sometimes on a weekly basis.
So I'm showing my age here, but some years ago, it was probably in the 80s. There was a famous weight loss personality, and she had her head wasn't shaved, but she had super short hair. But her whole tagline was "Stop the Madness." And sometimes I feel when we work with marketing organizations, I just want to take them and shake them and say, just stop the madness, right? You just can't live in this world where you've got all these different people pulling on you, asking you to do something, and your goal really is to do these things, right? And again, for me, it is truly a failure of leadership when you see those kinds of situations. It's the CMO not wanting to stand up and say, this is the best and highest use of marketing in our organization. This is how we can help increase shareholder value, and all that other shit that you want me to do. We just need to stop doing it and stop doing it. Right.
Again, you and I both mentor a few CMOs, and we're seeing the savvier ones now not just have an employment contract, but they're getting the CEO to sign, in their offer letter exactly what they're going to be able to do over their first 18, 24 months.
Oh, yeah.
What they're not going to do. Mm-hmm. Because really you've got to have some of that air cover. Because while every business is impatient, there's so many things in marketing, unfortunately, do take time to develop. We just don't have always that luxury of time. So if you can negotiate for some of that time in advance, that makes a big difference.
Absolutely. And Jeff, you also mentioned the rise of the fractional CMO. We are seeing that in spades. It's a very, very popular role now. Many organizations, perhaps not your $1 billion organizations, but certainly 200 million up to, what would you say, $1 billion, maybe in that range, where they're using fractional CMOs to come in and help shape the strategy and get those teams all pulling in the right direction. So again, it's just another indicator of organizations not believing in the full value of a full-time CMO.
Right. You talk about a gap in skill sets. So many of these CMOs, they spent years building up their company's brands, doing all kinds of stuff. When it comes time to marketing themselves, they're woefully unprepared.
Right.
They're still sending out resumes like it's 1985. Yeah. And, so all the things they know how to do, targeting, channel, personalized messaging, value propositions, they can't do for themselves for whatever reason.
Exactly. Or for the organization. I have told many a CMO that the number one PR campaign you need to have is talking about the value of marketing within your own organization, right? Because everybody who doesn't work in marketing, they're not thinking about marketing. They're not thinking about what you're doing, and they have preconceived notions about what you should be doing, right? And so you need a whole internal marketing campaign to communicate the value of marketing to the organization. And it's not just with sales, it's with the CFO, it's with the customer success team, it's with everybody within the organization that asks you to do something on a regular basis.
Yeah, even simple for marketing teams that do have a campaign calendar, just share it.
Yeah, you mean just share it? Yeah, that would be a good one, wouldn't it? So anyway.
Yeah, because in sales, they want to know what's going on. It pisses a salesperson's off when some customer prospect's coming to them with an offer or something they had no idea about, because marketing's out all this stuff. It takes 2 extra minutes to send a weekly update to your sales team about what's going on in market. Yeah. But that's another thing that doesn't get done. So, and maybe it's because they're so busy doing anything and everything, they're not spending enough time to actually communicate the plan and get out ahead of this.
Yeah.
So
and I know everybody is super, super busy, but I do want to come back to 2 things. Number one, this idea is that you have to plan, right? You can't just keep running like a hamster on a wheel in its cage. You're not going to be successful like that. You have to stop, and you have to think, and you have to plan. The other thing I was thinking about as we're sitting here talking about this, we've all seen those cartoons where you've got a person and they've got all these different hats on top of their head. And it's talking about all the different hats that the CMO must wear. That's bullshit, right? Let me tell you why. The graphic should be not about the hats. It should be about the person. And it should be about that leader controlling which hats they select, right? So we've just got the wrong idea. And again, for me, it gets back to a failure of leadership when the CMO is acting like the hamster on a wheel and has their entire team working that same way, not creating long-term value, short-term value for the organization. If you don't get into the mindset of, yes, we can create shareholder value, your job's going to be at risk. And we've seen a lot of CMOs lose their jobs over the last.
I read an article last week that they did a study on the world's billionaires, and they were trying to find what common traits they had. And what they found was, regardless of where they grew up, how they grew up, what their parents did, whether they had money or didn't have money. The one thing they found consistently was the billionaires always found time for themselves every week to just be quiet. They had quiet time to think, whether it was reading or planning. And actually, most of them like really just focused on that, just time to let go. And so you're thinking about, these are incredibly successful people. They have their hands in so many different things. So if they could be billionaires and they're finding time every single week, and people might say, well, of course they're billionaires. They can go out on their yacht. But like, okay, but even before they got to be a billionaire.
Right. That's how they got there. Right. It's absolutely how they got there.
So how many CMOs take time each week to do nothing? Go someplace quiet, shut down for a half day and just think. And that's when our body, when we're at rest, we can be our most creative. It's really hard to really think strategically when you're so busy doing everything.
That's absolutely true. That's absolutely true. So, Jeff, is there a place for CMO in corporate America?
If they get it right, there is. There always is.
Yeah.
I know we got everybody's attention, getting everybody in a hussy and tussy this morning, but yeah, we love CMOs. We're going to be doing this for another 20 years. Don't worry, y'all. We're fighting for you.
Yeah,
but what
we're fighting for you. That's exactly right.
But you got to pick it up.
But we sure see a lot of shit going on. That's all, and we're just calling it out.
We are. That's our job. We're keeping it raw. Revenue Marketing Raw, live with Dr. Debbie Qaqish and Jeff Pedowitz, and we'll see you guys next Wednesday. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
All right.